Sometimes less is more. Finally, the MXT575 50-watt mobile GMRS radio is available for purchase. And because a lot of people have been waiting for this radio, I am going to show it to you. I will do some power tests. I will do some FARS tests to see how far the radio can talk. And I will go over the pros and cons of this eagerly awaited radio. The price for the Midland MXT575 radio is $399, and my friends at Midland did send me this radio so that I could share it with you, my favorite viewer. Now first, right up front, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This thing costs $399. This is not an inexpensive radio, and no doubt many online comment experts will proclaim that you can get a radio that does a lot more for less dollars. Sadly, what many of those comment experts are too stupid to realize is that many people do not want a radio that does a lot more. They do not want a radio that is more complicated. Many people want a simple radio that does not have a bunch of bells and whistles and knobs and dials and flashy lights. Many people find value in simplicity. And what many of those experts also fail to comprehend is that the MXT575 also comes with an antenna and coax and a magnetic mount for affixing to the top of your car that those other more complicated radios do not come with, and you would have to pay extra for. So this radio is perfect for a lot of people, and it is not perfect for a lot of people. And I feel that it is my job as a YouTube superstar to let you know by the end of this video whether the MXT575 is the right radio for you and your active GMRS lifestyle. So when you purchase the Midland MXT575 50-watt mobile GMRS radio, in the box you will receive a Midland sticker. You will receive a power cable, which will connect to the radio, which I will commence to show you momentarily. The radio cannot be plugged into a cigarette lighter, or at least should not be plugged into a cigarette lighter, because it outputs 50 watts, and most cigarette lighters or 12-volt plugs in most cars do not have the sufficient electricities to power that 50 watts. It's got terminals to make your connections easier, but you could clip those off if you needed to. And the wire is fused, both black and red. You will receive a quick start guide, which shows you everything you need to do to get the radio up and running quickly. You will receive a user manual, which is extremely well written in perfect English, and it is not full of a bunch of techno babble as if you were some sort of radio expert. This manual is written for the common man or common woman, and it explains how to connect the radio into your vehicle, how to use the radio, all of the menu functions. You can tell a lot about a radio by how much time and effort the company puts into the user manual. Midland put a lot of time and effort into this very well-written user manual. The only thing that I do not like about this user manual is that it is very small. It was not written for old eyeballs. You will receive a mounting clip for the microphone with self-adhesive sticky tape on there, and screws if you prefer to screw it in permanently. You will receive a goodie bag of screws and bolts. You will receive a mounting bracket, which you can affix to your vehicle. The chassis of the radio then quickly and easily slides in and out. It has quick release levers that allow you to quickly pull the radio out of the mounting bracket. You will receive a magnetic mount antenna base for attaching to your vehicle. This is a very strong magnet that you slap onto the roof or hood of your car. It has enough coaxial cable to run the entire length of your vehicle and connect to your MXT575. If I recall properly, on the older versions, the MXT275 and some of the older Midland radios, the cable that came with the antenna and the mount was very thin. It wasn't even cable, it was wire. This is an actual coaxial cable. It is not the most heavy duty or the highest quality, but it is much better quality than on the previous antennas. You will receive a self-adhesive sticky metal plate. This can be used in conjunction with your antenna mount. If you need to mount your antenna on a non-magnetic surface, you simply peel the adhesive backing off, stick that to your non-magnetic surface, and then you can mount your antenna mount, magnetic antenna mount, to that. You can then mount your magnetic antenna mount to a non-magnetic surface. You will receive a very small and compact antenna. This is an NMO mount antenna, which is a standard type of mount for UHF and GMRS radios that easily screws onto your antenna mount. Thusly, you can put almost any antenna on there that you like, but this antenna works surprisingly well, as I will show you momentarily. You will receive the MXT575 radio chassis. This is where the guts and the glory of the radio are. On the front, you'll find a hole for the microphone. It has a USB-C port, which is covered by this small dust cover, which once you remove, you will lose almost immediately. You can use that USB-C plug to plug your phone in or other things in to charge up. It has a large, fairly loud speaker on the top. On the rear, it has an SO239 connector for plugging in a standard PL259 antenna connector. That's the normal type of connector that you're used to in CB radios and GMRS radios. It also has a speaker plug for connecting in an external speaker and a DC power plug. And you will receive the all-in-one speaker microphone control unit. This is where all of the magic happens. The beauty of the MXT575 is that all of the controls for the radio are all in this convenient little package called the microphone. You will notice that on the radio chassis, there are no controls. So you can mount this somewhere out of the way, throw it under the seat. You don't have to worry about this box. I was going to say this big box. It's actually not very big. Just over 6.5 inches at its longest, but it is wide at 5.5 inches. So once you mount this out of the way, where you never have to think about it again, all of your interactions with the radio will be through the control microphone. I'll show you quickly in a moment what all the buttons are for, but the quick overview is volume up and down, as indicated, the menu button, the call button, lock, scan, monitor, and weather, or listening to the weather channels, power on and off, and channels up and down. Push to talk. And there is a jack for an external speaker, microphone, or headset. The microphone feels sturdy. It is plastic, but it is a good quality, strong plastic. And it connects using this plug into the chassis, thusly. So I have connected the radio to a power supply. This radio does require 13.8 volts. So if you give it only 12 volts, it will work, but you will not get your full high power output. You can use this at a base station, like inside of your house. You just need a power supply, such as this Duracom LPX14. Affiliate link below. So now that it has power, I have plugged in the control head, as some experts like to call it. Plug that in. I do not yet have an antenna connected, but we will turn the radio on by pressing the power on button. Now, a few things about the MXT575. Yes, this is a wide-band radio. Many people, myself included, criticized Midland in the past for only selling narrow-band radios. This is a wide-band radio. The radio transmits and receives GMRS channels 1 through 7 and channels 15 through 22 only. The FCCs will not allow any mobile radios to transmit on channels 8 through 14, so the Midland 575 skips those channels completely. The radio also can receive the NOAA weather channels, and it also does weather alerts. That is it. It does not receive other frequencies. You cannot use this as a scanner. This is a very simple radio. It has only 8 repeater channels, and it does not do multiple repeaters on the same frequency with different tones. If you know what that is, and if you care about it, then this radio is not for you. To keep this radio simple and easy to use, repeater channels are not even enabled by default, so out of the box, it works just like a CB radio. You just turn it on, you pick a channel, you press the button, and you talk. Very simple. It has the speaker here in the chassis. It also has a speaker in the microphone. You can set it so that only this speaker is on, only that speaker is on, or both speakers are on, which is very handy in a loud vehicle. It beeps when you change channels and do many things, but it does have a silent mode for when you're hunting or stalking your ex-girlfriend. The screen colors are customizable. So for example, if I don't like purple, I can go into the menu settings, select the option, you press the lock key to select that option, and then use the up and down arrow keys to change it. You can turn the backlight off altogether, or choose from this pleasant palette of colors. When I select the one that I like, I press the lock button and that saves my setting. And very importantly, this radio does have a Roger beep. The buttons are very simple. The menu, as I mentioned, that allows you to scroll through the menu options, which are all explained very thoroughly in the user manual. It has a call button, which makes a very annoying noise, which you can transmit over the air, and you can change that sound. It is configurable also in the menu settings. Volume up and down. You can switch to the weather frequencies by pressing the WX button. It's currently scanning through the weather frequencies. It does do weather alerts as well, so it will automatically stop and let you listen to a weather alert. The scan button allows you to stop and start the scanning of the weather channels or the GMRS channels. And it has a monitor button that will disable the squelch so you can hear any signals that are coming in over the air. No programming is needed to start using this radio. You take it out of the box, you plug it in, and you start talking. By default, the repeater channels are not enabled, so it is just like a CB radio. It is very simple to use. You pick your channel, you press the button, and you start talking. If you want to use a repeater, it's very easy to set up. You just go into the menu, you find the repeater option, and you enable it. This gives you those 8 additional repeater channels, should you choose to use them. It's all very simple. And because it is so simple, no computer software is needed to program this radio. Midland does not even make any software available. You really don't need it. Now the antenna. This is a small antenna. GMRS operates at UHF frequencies, so you don't really need a very long antenna. Right at 6 inches when measured from the base. And many of the online experts complain about this antenna, but I've used this specific antenna and this model of antenna many times before, multiple ones, and this is a surprisingly good antenna. So let's check the SWR. As you can see, it is very easy to attach the antenna to the magnetic base. I will connect it to my SureCom SW102 SWR and power meter. And I'm even going to leave the antenna wire coiled, as many people might do in their vehicle. I will connect the other end into the radio using my Messi and Poloni high quality jumper cable. We do need a ground plane for the antenna. So for the ground plane, I will use this old brownie pan. Now you could use any piece of metal. I just happen to have a brownie pan lying around. Now the experts will tell you that you must put your antenna in the exact center of your ground plane or it will not work. Those experts don't know what they're talking about. So I will place the antenna, as you can see, not in the center of the ground plane. I have the coax coiled, which the experts also say will make the radio not work. And we will measure the SWR of this antenna. You will see the SWR displayed here. You will also see the power displayed up in the corner here. Let's not look at that yet because to get a good, accurate power reading, we will need the dummy load, which I'll put on in a minute. We're just going to focus on the SWR for now to see how this antenna works on an imperfect ground plane with a coiled up cable. It is set at high power, so let's see what kind of SWR reading we get. Almost a perfect SWR, 1.16 to 1, with an imperfect ground plane and a coiled up coax cable, which the experts told us would not work. We'll do a FARS test in a minute to see how far this antenna can actually talk. But first, let's check the power. So I will attach my dummy load to my SW102, affiliate link below for both of these. The box says it should output 50 watts. That does not mean we would expect to see exactly 50 watts. No radio outputs full power across the full range of channels, but we would expect to see it within 2 or 3 watts of what the box says. So let's start on channel 1. Now channel 1 through 7 are low power channels only, so it will only allow me to transmit at low power. So let's see what it does at low power on channel 1. 5.3, 5.27 watts, right where we would expect it to be. Let's go to a high power channel. Let's say channel 16. And on channel 16, high power, we get 49.49 watts. You almost cannot get any closer to 50 watts than that. Now let's try a repeater channel. I have enabled the repeater channels. You see the small RP after the channel 19. If you don't enable the repeater channels in the settings, you won't even see these extra channels. On repeater channels, when you transmit, you're transmitting at an even higher frequency. We would expect to see the power a little bit lower on this frequency. Let's see what we get. 48.8 watts. Very good. Pretty much right where we expect it to be. Now the big question is, how many FARs does it talks? Now, how many FARs a radio has depends on many factors. The power output is one factor. The antenna is another factor. But the most important factor that will determine the FARs of your radio is what is between you and the other radio of which you wish to speak with. If there is nothing between you and that other radio, you will talk many FARs, 30, 40, 50 miles, depending on the antenna of the other radio. But if there is anything between you and that other radio, for example, a mountain or a city with big buildings full of fat people, or even a forest, if there's anything between you, those things will block and degrade your signal and greatly reduce the number of FARs that your radio has. So to help me do a FARS test, I have my friend Chris, who is at home at his house, that direction, 10.3 miles away. Chris, as you all know, is the real star of this show. I'm just here filling time between Chris's appearances. Now, Chris is 10.3 miles away, but I should point out that I am at a slightly higher elevation than Chris is at. He is down below me in the valley, so we do not have much of anything between us. There are some trees, there are some buildings, there are some houses, but not a lot. We have very good line of sight, not perfect, but I can pretty much see where he is from my perch high above the valley. Chris will be using a handheld walkie-talkie with a little walkie-talkie antenna. He will not be using his big base station radio with his big antenna on the house, which he is known for worldwide. And I will be calling Chris directly, radio to radio, on channel 19. We will not be using a repeater. We will be talking directly to one another, just like if we were off-roading or doing other adventuring. We will test high power first, which is full 50 watts. This radio has only a high and a low. There is no middle. So we'll test high power first. We'll then go down to low power, which is 5 watts, to see if he can still hear me on low power. So let's see how well Chris comes in on his walkie-talkie from 10.3 miles away. I have that little antenna that came with the MXT575. It's sitting in the window on the brownie pan off, not centered, on the brownie pan right over there. Chris is 10.3 miles that way, right behind you, basically. Chris, 530, do you copy?
Yes, sir, I copy.
Chris, say hello to all of your adoring fans. Let us know what kind of radio you're on and how do we sound down there.
You guys sound really good, and signal's strong. I am using an XTS 5000.
For those of you not familiar, an XTS 5000 is a Motorola handheld walkie-talkie, outputting 5 watts. All right, so I have switched now to low power. I've switched now to... I have switched now to low power. Let's see if... The speaker is loud. Let's see if Chris can copy me on low power. Chris, 530, do you copy me on low power?
Roger that, sir. I copy you on low power.
I didn't expect him to copy me on low power. Okay, so low power, he is still receiving me 10 miles away. How do we sound on low power, and is it any significantly different than it was on high power?
Not to my ear, sir. Maybe a slight hiss, but not to my ear, sir. Super clean signal.
I'm a little bit surprised, even at low power at 10 miles away, using the little antenna on the pie pan, offset from the middle, that all the experts said wouldn't work. We're still coming in pretty good on his walkie-talkie. Now we're going to try to hit a repeater 69 miles away. I will try to call Chris, who, although he is only 10 miles away, he is also connecting to that repeater, which from his house is about 60 miles away. So instead of going directly radio to radio, I will be talking to that repeater 69 miles away. Chris will be hearing me through that repeater roughly 60 miles away from his house, and we'll see how that sounds. Chris, 530, do you copy me through the repeater?
Yes, sir. I copy you through the repeater.
Give me a 5 count and let me know, tell us how I sound coming through that repeater.
You sound great, sir. You sound wonderful.
Chris said I sound wonderful. So as you can see, the MXT does have many FARs. It does output the full, pretty much the full 50 watts, just like it says on the box. It does everything it's supposed to do, and it does it quite well. So should you buy the new Midland MXT575 50-watt wideband mobile GMRS radio? Well, as with many things in life, it depends. The Midland MXT575 is a very simple radio. Simple to set up and simple to use. And to keep it simple, it has some limitations compared to some other more complicated radios. So if you want a GMRS radio that can connect to dozens of repeaters and scan VHF and UHF frequencies and do other complicated radio dork stuff, then the MXT575 is not for you. If, however, you want a high-power GMRS radio that is very easy to use and that the whole family can use easily, then the MXT575 is perfect. You take it out of the box, you hook it up, you hold the microphone to your face, you press the button, and you talk. And in the GMRS world, it does not get any simpler than that.